It was one of those Atlanta mornings that started soft but promised heat later. The kind of day when sunlight looked honest at first, and then showed you every flaw it could find. Cars hummed down Peachtree, lawns hissed with sprinklers, and behind the gates of the Bellamy estate, someone was always polishing something that was already clean. Amara Lewis stood outside those iron gates, holding a small suitcase and an envelope that smelled faintly of lemon and printer ink. Her reflection rippled across the glossy hood of a parked SUV, and she almost didn't recognize herself. Pressed uniform, hair tied back, eyes that carried the weight of too many yes ma'ams. She checked the address again. Bellamy, 3012. The family that people in her neighborhood whispered about when they talked of real money. The kind that buys silence, not comfort. A guard at the intercom leaned forward from the booth, studying her. "You the new help?" Amara smiled politely. "Amara Lewis. Mrs. Bellamy asked me to start today." He buzzed her in. The gate opened with a sound like a sigh from something old and tired. The driveway curved forever. The house at the end wasn't a home. It was a statement. White columns, too many windows, and a lawn so perfect it looked photoshopped. A gardener trimmed roses in slow, precise movements, like he was afraid the flowers might notice. When Amara knocked, the door opened almost immediately. A woman stood there, mid-40s, elegant, pearls like punctuation, smile rehearsed. "You must be Amara," she said. "I'm Mrs. Bellamy. Thank you for being on time. It's rare these days." "Yes, ma'am." "Please," the woman said, already turning, "come in." The foyer looked like a museum exhibit on success. Marble floors, a chandelier the size of a small car, and portraits of people who looked too serious to ever laugh. "I understand you've worked in private homes before," Mrs. Bellamy said, walking briskly. "Discretion is very important to us. My husband entertains clients here. We value privacy. You'll find this job easy if you're professional." "I always try to be," Amara said. Mrs. Bellamy stopped at a door. "This will be your uniform closet. Your room's upstairs. You'll report to me directly. Questions?" "No, ma'am." "Good. Lunch is served at 1, dinner at 7. My husband's study is off limits. And," she hesitated, lowering her voice, "our daughter can be sensitive. Teenagers, you know. Be polite, but don't get too involved." Amara nodded. She had learned long ago that "don't get involved" really meant don't exist more than necessary. Upstairs, the house smelled like money trying to imitate warmth. Lavender candles, new wood polish, air that never came from open windows. She unpacked quietly, smoothing her uniform on the bedspread. At noon, she met the rest of the staff, an older cook named Mrs. Hart, a young groundskeeper who barely spoke, and a butler who had been with the family since the daughter was born. "She's a good girl," Mrs. Hart whispered as they chopped vegetables together. "Just lost. The mother's a perfectionist. The father's always away. That kind of house keeps its secrets." Amara didn't answer. Houses like this always did. Later that day, she met the daughter. Jocelyn Bellamy was 16, all eye rolls and designer shoes, sitting by the pool scrolling through her phone. Her expression said she was bored with the world. "Hi there," Amara said gently. The girl looked up. "You're the new maid?" "Yes, ma'am." "I'm not your ma'am," Jocelyn said sharply. "You're supposed to call me Miss Bellamy. That's what the others do." "All right, then, Miss Bellamy." The girl studied her. "You're not like the others." "How's that?" "You look like you care too much," Jocelyn said. "They don't. They just do what my mom says." Amara smiled faintly. "Caring isn't a bad thing." "In this house it is," Jocelyn murmured. Before Amara could reply, Mrs. Bellamy's voice echoed from the balcony. "Jocelyn! Inside! You'll burn your skin again." The girl rolled her eyes. "See?" That night, as Amara cleared the table after dinner, she overheard raised voices from the study. Mr. Bellamy had come home late, tall, commanding, a voice that filled rooms even when he whispered. "You told her already?" he snapped. "She's the best candidate," Mrs. Bellamy said. "Her references were spotless." "She's not one of us," he said. "You think people won't notice?" "She's qualified." "She's visible." The door slammed. Silence followed. Amara froze, plate in hand, invisible in plain sight. She didn't know exactly what "not one of us" meant, but she didn't need a dictionary to feel it. That phrase, she'd learned, could mean anything. Too poor, too dark, too proud. The next morning, Jocelyn was sitting at the kitchen island, a bruise blooming faintly on her arm. Amara didn't ask. She just poured orange juice and placed it gently in front of her. "Did you know," Jocelyn said suddenly, "that my dad says you shouldn't trust people who smile too much?" "Maybe he's never met anyone who smiles for real," Amara said softly. The girl looked at her, really looked, and for a moment her expression cracked. "I hate this house," she whispered. "Then make it yours," Amara said. "Start small. Move the furniture in your room. Open a window. Don't let other people's walls trap your air." Jocelyn blinked, surprised. "You talk weird." "I talk true," Amara said. Over the next week, she learned the rhythm of the mansion. When it slept, when it lied, when it exhaled its truths. She also learned that Mr. Bellamy's temper was legend, and that Mrs. Bellamy's perfection hid something brittle underneath. Then, one Friday evening, everything broke. A diamond bracelet went missing. Mrs. Bellamy discovered it after dinner, frantic, pale, pacing. "It was in my drawer this morning," she cried. "Who's been in my room?" The staff stood silent. The butler looked offended. The cook wrung her hands. Mrs. Bellamy's eyes fell on Amara. "You cleaned today, didn't you?" "Yes, ma'am," Amara said slowly. "Did you see it?" "No, ma'am." "Are you sure?" "Yes, ma'am." Her calm only made things worse. By morning, Mr. Bellamy had called security. The guard checked her room, her bag, her locker. Nothing. Still, the air had shifted. The others wouldn't meet her eyes. Jocelyn avoided the kitchen altogether. That afternoon, Mrs. Bellamy dismissed her from duty until the matter was clarified. "I didn't take it," Amara said simply. "I hope that's true," Mrs. Bellamy replied. "But perception matters in this house." Outside, the sun was blinding. The gate closed behind her with the same tired sigh as the first day. Amara stood there, suitcase in hand, heartbeat steady, but hurt deep. She'd been through this before, the way suspicion finds easy targets. But this time, something inside her refused to stay quiet. She took a deep breath. "No," she said aloud to the air, to herself, to God. "Not again." She turned back toward the mansion. The air felt heavier when Amara walked back up that driveway, as if the house itself disapproved of her defiance. She didn't have a plan, only conviction. And conviction, she'd learned, was a kind of compass that pointed through storms whether you liked it or not. She stopped at the front door and pressed the bell. The butler opened it, surprise flickering across his practiced calm. "Ms. Lewis," he said cautiously. "I was told—" "I know what you were told," she said evenly. "And I need to see Mrs. Bellamy." He hesitated. In a house like this, hierarchy was sacred. You didn't request meetings. You waited to be summoned. "Please," Amara added. The word was polite, but her voice carried weight. He nodded slowly, stepping aside. "Wait here." She stood in the foyer, surrounded by marble that gleamed like it was proud of its cleanliness. Her reflection looked back at her from the floor, small, dark, unbent. Mrs. Bellamy appeared moments later, pearls still perfect, expression clipped. "Amara, I thought I made myself clear yesterday." "You did, ma'am," Amara said. "You asked me to leave, and I did. But I can't let a lie wear my name." Mrs. Bellamy blinked, caught off guard by the directness. "No one has accused you officially." "Unofficially's enough," Amara said. "I've seen how people look at me now. I've worked too hard to let a rumor be the last word on me." The older woman sighed. "This isn't personal, Amara. It's procedure." "It's always procedure until it happens to someone who matters," Amara said quietly. "I matter too." That line hung in the air. Mrs. Bellamy's posture stiffened, not from anger, but discomfort. The kind of truth that hits before pride can armor itself. "What would you have me do?" she asked finally. "Let me prove it," Amara said. "Search again. My things, everyone's. Or let me find it myself. I don't want pity. I want justice." Before Mrs. Bellamy could respond, a voice drifted down the staircase. "Mom, what's going on?" Jocelyn stood halfway down, wearing an oversized hoodie, curiosity sharpening her face. "Nothing you need to worry about," her mother said quickly. "She's back," Jocelyn said, her eyes finding Amara. "I'm here to clear my name," Amara said. The girl hesitated, then walked the rest of the way down. "Good," she said softly. Mrs. Bellamy looked between them, uneasy. "Fine. 10 minutes," she said, crossing her arms. "After that, I want you off this property." Amara nodded once. "That's all I need." They gathered in the sitting room, Mrs. Bellamy, the butler, Mrs. Hart, the cook, and Jocelyn lingering by the doorway. The air felt like glass about to crack. "Go ahead," Mrs. Bellamy said. Amara took a slow breath. "Yesterday, you said the bracelet was in your drawer in the morning." "Yes." "And who else goes into your room?" "Only me, and occasionally the staff for cleaning." Amara looked at the butler. "Sir?" He straightened, affronted. "I've been in service 30 years. I don't steal." "I didn't say you did," Amara said gently. "I just asked if anyone else enters." He hesitated. "Sometimes Miss Bellamy," he admitted quietly. "She borrows jewelry." Mrs. Bellamy turned sharply. "Jocelyn?" The girl flushed. "I didn't take it. I just tried it on last week. You said I could." "I said you could ask," her mother corrected. Amara held up a hand, stopping the argument before it built momentum. "It's fine. Miss Bellamy, do you remember where you put it back?" Jocelyn frowned, thinking. "On the vanity, I think. Or maybe I dropped it?" Mrs. Bellamy's voice rose. "Dropped it? Where?" "I don't know," Jocelyn snapped, defensive now. It was just a bracelet. Amara turned to the cook. Mrs. Hart, you cleaned that room Thursday, right? Yes, dear, the woman said, but I didn't see no bracelet. And the vacuum? Amara asked. The one used upstairs. Is it emptied or reused? The cook blinked. Reused? Then maybe we should check it. Mrs. Bellamy frowned, impatient. This is absurd. But Jocelyn's face had changed. Her hand flew to her mouth. Wait, she said. The vacuum. I heard something rattle when I used it to clean my rug after painting. She ran upstairs. They followed. Mrs. Bellamy reluctant, Amara calm, the others curious. In Jocelyn's room, sunlight poured across a pile of clothes, books, and half-finished canvases. The vacuum sat in the corner, quiet, innocent. Jocelyn unplugged it, opened the dust compartment, and gasped. There, half buried in gray dust and bits of glitter, lay the bracelet, one diamond missing, but unmistakable. The silence that followed felt like thunder about to apologize. Mrs. Bellamy stared, color draining from her face. Oh, God. Jocelyn's eyes filled with tears. I didn't mean. I must have. Amara knelt, taking the bracelet gently from the filter. It's okay, she said softly. We found it. That's all that matters. Mrs. Bellamy swallowed hard, voice trembling. Amara, you don't owe me words, Amara said, standing. Just honesty. I owe you both, Mrs. Bellamy said, almost whispering. Honesty and an apology. Her composure cracked for the first time since Amara met her. She turned to her daughter. You owe her one too. Jocelyn wiped her eyes. I'm sorry, she said. You didn't deserve that. I know, Amara said quietly. But thank you for saying it. Downstairs, Mrs. Hart hugged her without asking permission. You've got grace like a preacher's wife, she said. Amara smiled faintly. Grace is just practice. Later, Mrs. Bellamy invited Amara into her study, a rare privilege. The room smelled of cedar and regret. I don't expect you to stay, Mrs. Bellamy said. Not after this. Amara looked around. The shelves were full of trophies, awards, family photos, proof of success. But none of them showed warmth. You hired me to clean your house, she said softly. But the dirt in here isn't on the floor. Mrs. Bellamy looked away. You sound like my mother. Maybe she was right too. They both laughed, a small, real sound in a house allergic to sincerity. I don't know how to fix this, Mrs. Bellamy admitted. You start by not pretending it didn't happen, Amara said, and by treating people like they're not furniture. Mrs. Bellamy nodded slowly. If I asked you to stay, would you? Amara considered it. Maybe, but not as the maid who was accused, as Amara. Mrs. Bellamy's eyes softened. Then Amara, will you stay? Amara exhaled. I'll think about it. That night, Jocelyn knocked on her door. Amara opened it to find the girl holding a small velvet pouch. I fixed it, she said. The bracelet. One of the diamonds was loose, so I glued it. I know it's not the same, but it's the least I can do. Amara smiled. You don't owe me things, sweetheart. Just truth. I didn't know adults could still be kind, Jocelyn said. They can, Amara said. They just forget how. The girl nodded, biting her lip. I want to learn. Then start by forgiving yourself, Amara said. That's the first lesson. When the house went quiet, Amara sat by her window watching the wind move through the trees. She felt tired but peaceful. Dignity, she realized, wasn't about what people called you. It was what you refused to let them take away. The next morning when she came downstairs, Mrs. Bellamy was waiting with 2 cups of coffee. I spoke to my husband, she said. He wants to apologize too. He's not great at words. I'm not here for his words, Amara said. Just fairness. You have both, Mrs. Bellamy said. Stay. Not because we need help, but because this house needs a conscience. Amara looked out the window. Jocelyn was sitting by the pool, sketching sunlight on water. For the first time, it didn't look like a cage. It looked like a reflection. All right, Amara said quietly. I'll stay. Mrs. Bellamy smiled. Thank you. Amara nodded. Just one thing, ma'am. Yes? When people talk about me, I want them to use my name. Mrs. Bellamy's expression softened. They will. Amara smiled faintly. Then we understand each other. Outside, the air had changed again. Lighter, freer. The gate still sighed when it opened, but this time it sounded like relief. Under new light, the Bellamy house learned unfamiliar habits. Doors stayed open longer. Voices chose softer tones. The staff stopped walking like ghosts. Even the air vents seemed to hush. It was the kind of change that doesn't announce itself. It simply begins, then keeps beginning until one day you realize you're living in it. Amara kept her same hours, but her role shifted from invisible to inevitable. She didn't ask for authority. She became it by noticing what needed noticing. She moved the medicine into a bin labeled clearly, set a small glass bowl by the front door for keys no one would lose anymore, taught the alarm to text Mrs. Hart if a sensor failed. When the laundry door stuck, she showed Jocelyn how to sand the edge and rub a candle along the frame so wood would remember to glide. Little things make big promises, she said. The girl memorized that sentence as if it were a password to someplace worth going. On Monday, Mrs. Bellamy knocked on Amara's door at 7:05 a.m., 2 mugs in her hands, the steam a white flag. I drafted a message, she said, to the staff, and to my friends who were here the night the bracelet disappeared. She tried to keep her voice steady and failed with dignity. I wrote that I accused the wrong person, that the bracelet was found in our vacuum, that I'm sorry. Amara read the note. It did not explain itself to death. It apologized cleanly and paid respect to truth without ornament. It's a good letter, she said. Send it before you decide it's too hard. Mrs. Bellamy hit send in front of her and let herself breathe. Thank you, she whispered, for not letting me hide behind silence. Word traveled predictably, the way gossip always does, only this time it carried parody instead of poison. The staff looked Amara in the eye. The butler cleared his throat and said, Ms. Lewis, if you'll forgive me, and meant it. Mrs. Hart made her a peach cobbler that tasted like a hymn. The groundskeeper started greeting her with a nod that included respect rather than mere acknowledgement. Respect is just attention you decided counts. Mr. Bellamy apologized badly the first time. Men who fix problems for a living don't always know how to ask forgiveness. He stood at the edge of the kitchen like a man unsure if he needed a reservation. Ms. Lewis, he said, about last week, I mishandled it. Amara waited. She knew when to let a sentence climb its own staircase. I judge too quickly, he said. I let appearances do my thinking. He searched the ceiling for a word that wouldn't embarrass him. I'm sorry. Thank you, Amara said. If you want to make it right, let me do my job without stepping on my name. He nodded once, deeply. Understood. It might have ended there, with private apologies and internal repair, if the world hadn't demanded spectacle. 2 days later, Mrs. Bellamy hosted a charity luncheon for a foundation that taught girls to code. The kind of event rich houses hold to prove they remember problems exist. The guest list shimmered. Cameras would be minimal. Appearances mattered. The morning of, Jocelyn hovered in the doorway of her mother's dressing room, hands clenched in the sleeves of her sweater. "Mom," she said, may I speak?" Mrs. Bellamy turned from the mirror. She had learned something new this week. She took off one pearl earring to listen better. Always. "Are you going to tell them?" Jocelyn asked. "About the bracelet? About Amara?" Mrs. Bellamy's throat worked. "I sent the letter." "To us," Jocelyn said. "To the people who already know. But they'll be here." She gestured at the imagined crowd. "They were here when we," she swallowed. "I don't want to stand in another room where a lie is the wallpaper." Mrs. Bellamy sat on the edge of the vanity bench, the fabric sighing. Pride wanted to say no. Love had begun to learn new words. "What do you think I should say?" she asked. "The truth," Jocelyn said. "Not the part that makes us look brave. The part that makes us look like we learned." At noon, the driveway bloomed with cars that spelled status in chrome. The caterers moved like a ballet with better shoes. The foundation director rehearsed her talking points near the herb garden. Mrs. Bellamy stood at the mic in the sun, her posture perfect, her voice a little human for once. "Before we begin," she said, "I want to clean something that isn't silver." A ripple of confusion, then attention. "Last week, I accused someone in this house of stealing from me. I was wrong. The bracelet was found in a vacuum I should have emptied myself. I owe her an apology, and I owe all of you a reminder that wealth never bought anyone good judgment." The ripple became a wave, surprised, uncomfortable, impressed, offended, enriched. People who collect invitations collect reactions too. Mrs. Bellamy did not add the usual armor of humor. She didn't make herself the hero of her mistake. She simply gestured toward the patio door. "Amara, would you join us? Only if you wish." Every eye turned. Amara had been standing with a tray of sparkling water like any other day. She put the tray down, because dignity shouldn't balance glasses while it is being called by name. She walked forward with the same calm that had carried her through 100 unseen storms. "This is Ms. Amara Lewis," Mrs. Bellamy said, using the honorific the house had adopted in the last 72 hours. "She works here. More importantly, she helps us live here." Polite applause. It trembled between pity and respect. Amara tipped it toward respect by simply meeting it without shrinking. A woman near the front raised a hand like a question in church. "How do you forgive that?" she asked. It wasn't meant for microphones, but honesty had tilted the day. Amara considered the woman the way you consider a child asking why water is wet. "You don't forgive the way you dust a shelf," she said, her voice even. You forgive like you breathe, again and again, because the air keeps coming. And you don't confuse forgiveness with pretending it didn't happen. She glanced at Mrs. Bellamy, offering her dignity back. We tell the truth, and then we choose the next true thing. Someone exhaled in a way that sounded like they were putting down a stone. The foundation director, a woman who had fought for her own seat at too many tables, stepped forward and said, "Perhaps the best coding lesson girls can learn is how to rewrite a bad line and keep running the program." Laughter, grateful and clean. The luncheon continued, now anchored by a truth bigger than its centerpieces. Afterward, as guests dispersed, one of Mr. Bellamy's investors approached him privately. "You let your staff speak on your lawn," he said, half amused, half wary. "I let the truth speak," Mr. Bellamy replied. "It pays better dividends." He didn't realize until he said it that he meant the sentence beyond metaphor. That evening, the four of them, Mr. and Mrs. Bellamy, Jocelyn, and Amara, sat at the far end of the table, no guests, plates that didn't match because no one cared. Mrs. Hart served chicken and okra like comfort had a recipe. Mr. Bellamy raised his glass. "To Ms. Lewis," he said, not performing, "for defending her name, and for teaching this house what a name is for." "To learning," Mrs. Bellamy added. "To not vacuuming jewelry," Jocelyn said, her eyes sparkling with the new ease that follows a confession told properly. "To the next true thing," Amara said. They clinked. The sound was small and perfect. Consequences showed up, as they always do. A newspaper gossip column ran a sly paragraph about a dust-up at a certain Buckhead estate. A private online group traded commentary about overcorrecting optics. Mrs. Bellamy read both, and then placed her phone face down, a gesture that had become a boundary. "The people who want me to be smaller can go whisper in smaller rooms," she said. "I'll be loud where it matters." The house tested its new honesty in quieter ways, too. Jocelyn began leaving her door open, not as a plea, but as an invitation to ordinary connection. She asked Amara to teach her how to make cornbread. "From muscle memory, not a recipe," she said, smiling shyly. On the second try, they pulled a pan from the oven that tasted like Sunday learned to be a weekday. Jocelyn brought a plate to her mother with butter melting like applause. "Do you taste the forgiveness?" she joked, and they laughed together without flinching. Mr. Bellamy asked Amara to review the household safety systems, a sentence that would have sounded ridiculous a month earlier. She walked the property with him at dusk, not to admire but to assess. She pointed out a motion light that lagged, a gate hinge that would squeal itself into neglect, a blind corner on the drive that begged for a mirror. He took notes, nodding as if she were advising one of his companies. Respect wears many uniforms. One of them is a clipboard. In time, the city forgot the bracelet scandal because cities forget everything that doesn't feed them. What lingered was not scandal, but practice. The Bellamys began attending school meetings in person. The staff got raises that matched the house's appetite for beauty. A framed card appeared in the pantry, printed simply, "House rules. Tell the truth first. Apologize without costume. Lock doors, not hearts. Use names. Ask what's needed. Do the next true thing." Amara never signed it. She didn't have to. Spring pushed color into the hedges. The day Jocelyn's acceptance letter arrived, from a summer arts program she'd pretended she wasn't waiting for, She found Amara in the laundry room folding shirts the way grandmothers teach. "I got in," she said, trying very hard to be casual and failing with joy. "I'm scared." "Good," Amara said. "Fear is a sign your life's bigger than your schedule." "What if I fail?" "Then you'll learn, and you'll fail better next time." She tucked a shirt into the stack, perfect, then intentionally made the next one imperfect and left it. "See? The world didn't end." Jocelyn laughed, then grew quiet. "I want to say something without sounding little." "You're allowed to be little," Amara said. "It's part of being big." "I'm sorry I hurt you," Jocelyn said. "Not just with the bracelet. Before that too, when I wanted you to be invisible because it was easier." She looked up, eyes shining. "I want to see you. I want to know you, not as help, as Amara." "Then use my name," Amara said, soft and certain. "I will," Jocelyn said, and did. The last test arrived like they always do, on a Tuesday with nothing special about it. A cousin of Mr. Bellamy's visited, the kind of man who polishes his opinions in public. He made a joke that knocked 3 decades of history off the table and expected everyone to laugh. The room cooled. No one did. Amara didn't correct him with a lecture. She tilted her head and said, "We don't talk like that in this house. We use names here." The cousin coughed, offended by the mirror, and took his rudeness to the driveway. Mr. Bellamy stood in the doorway watching him go, and realized he had chosen a side so quietly it didn't feel like choosing. It felt like breathing. That night he knocked on Amara's door. "If you ever decide to leave," he said awkwardly, "please give us time to learn how to live without you. I don't mean your work, I mean your witness." Amara smiled with the fatigue that belonged to people who love consistently. "I'd never leave without teaching the house to remember itself," she said. "That's the job." He nodded, moved in the way men are when they are not used to being moved for free. "Thank you," he said, "for choosing your name and letting us hear ours in it." On a Sunday evening that smelled like rain deciding, Amara sat on the back steps with a cup of tea cooling too slowly. The pool lights shimmered like the past trying to be pretty. Mrs. Bellamy came outside and sat beside her without announcement. They watched the sky file its edges into dusk. "I grew up thinking dignity was what other people handed you if you behaved," Mrs. Bellamy said. "This month, I learned it's what you keep no matter what other people do." "Dignity is a pocket," Amara said. "You put your name in it. You don't take it out for company." They sat in companionable quiet, the kind new friends earn the hard way. "Do you ever get tired?" Mrs. Bellamy asked. "Every day," Amara said. "And then I rest, and then I care again." "What do you call that?" "Living." Inside, a timer went off in the kitchen like a polite bell. Mrs. Hart removed a pie with reverence. Jocelyn set the table with plates that didn't match on purpose. Mr. Bellamy turned off his phone and put it in a drawer. The house did what houses are supposed to do. It held. At dinner, no one gave speeches. They ate and passed and laughed and talked about schedules and art supplies and a minor leak near the upstairs bathroom that would be fixed before it became a metaphor. When the meal ended, Jocelyn stood and cleared plates without being asked. Mr. Bellamy took the trash out, because leadership is a chore. Mrs. Bellamy washed. Amara dried. 4 lives, 1 sink. It looked like a family without needing to be named one. Later, as Amara walked down the hallway toward her room, she paused at the framed house rules. She read the last line again. Do the next true thing, and nodded, as if someone had answered a prayer she hadn't realized she was still praying. She opened her door and found an envelope on the floor. Handwritten, for Amara. Inside a card. You taught us how to speak without shouting. You kept our names where we could reach them. Thank you for choosing yours. Underneath, 4 signatures. The last one was messy, teenage and proud. Amara, it read, in big letters, as if practicing the look of a future award. She laughed quietly, put the card on her dresser, and turned off the light. The house settled around her, a large animal at peace. Outside, wind combed the trees. Somewhere, a gate clicked shut, the way boundaries do when they're loved, not feared. And in the dark, Amara did what she always did after a day heavy with human weight. She let it all set, so tomorrow she could lift again. In the morning she would wake before the sun and choose her name, and the house, remembering its lesson, would echo it back. The news came quietly, the way storms sometimes begin with only a change in air pressure. One Tuesday morning, a letter arrived addressed to the Bellamy residence, but with Amara's name handwritten in the corner, as if the sender couldn't decide who the house really belonged to. Mrs. Bellamy opened it while Amara set the breakfast table. Inside was a formal notice from the State Domestic Services Association, the kind of envelope that made even confident people check their pulse. Mrs. Bellamy read silently, her face changing shades of disbelief. Someone filed a complaint, she said finally. Against us. Against the household. About what? Amara asked, still calm. About discrimination, Mrs. Bellamy said. And the report uses your name. Amara blinked. Mine? Yes. It says we dismissed you unfairly last month, that we made accusations based on prejudice, that you were humiliated publicly. It's an official review. Amara set down the napkin she was folding. I didn't file that complaint. I didn't think so, Mrs. Bellamy said. But they'll investigate either way. For a long moment they both stood in the quiet kitchen, the air thick with déjà vu. The kind of silence that brings back the sound of old accusations and voices raised in the wrong direction. Then Amara said, It doesn't matter who sent it. Maybe the world just wants to see if we meant what we said. Later that week, 2 inspectors came, 1 woman, 1 man, both polite in the careful way bureaucrats are trained to be. They asked questions in low voices, took notes in neat handwriting, and looked around the house like archaeologists trying to find fossils of inequality. Amara answered their questions without defensiveness. Yes, she had been asked to leave. Yes, she had returned to clear her name. Yes, the bracelet had been found. Yes, the family apologized. She didn't add poetry to the facts. She let truth carry its own weight. When the inspectors spoke with Mrs. Bellamy, the woman's voice cracked only once, when she said, If you're going to write something down, please write that she's the reason my house finally learned to breathe. After they left, Amara stood outside on the porch. The sky had that strange color it gets before rain, blue pretending to be brave. Jocelyn joined her, hands shoved in her hoodie pockets. They were nice, the girl said, but I hate that they had to come. Sometimes, Amara said, The world checks if we really changed, or if we just look like we did. Do you think they'll believe us? Jocelyn asked. They don't have to, Amara said. The house does. That's enough. The investigation dragged for weeks, long enough for gossip to bloom again like mold. Some of the Bellamys' acquaintances whispered that Amara had orchestrated the complaint herself for a payout. Others said the family was being punished for trying too hard to be progressive. It didn't matter. Gossip is only noise when you've already decided who you are. One evening, when the air felt too heavy to ignore, Amara found Mrs. Bellamy pacing near the window. I can't stand the waiting, she said. Every day I imagine new headlines. Amara placed a teacup in her hands. You survived worse, she said. You survived being wrong about someone who still came back to help you. Mrs. Bellamy laughed weakly. How do you stay so calm? I'm not calm, Amara said. I'm practiced. The next morning, the decision arrived. No violation found. The report concluded that the situation had been a personal misunderstanding, resolved through mutual respect. It might as well have been a benediction, but the relief didn't come from the paper. It came from the way Mrs. Bellamy handed it to Amara to read first. I wanted you to see it before I framed it, she said, smiling. Amara handed it back. Frame the apology letter instead. That's the real certificate. They laughed, and the sound had no nerves left in it. Only release. But fate, apparently, still had one more test. That afternoon, a journalist from a local lifestyle magazine called. She wanted to do a piece titled Grace Behind the Gates, Stories of the New South. She'd heard about the luncheon, the confession, the bracelet, the maid who stayed. It's inspiring, the journalist said over speakerphone. We'd love to feature Ms. Lewis, maybe even get a few quotes from her employers. Mr. Bellamy frowned. We don't need more attention. She deserves it, Mrs. Bellamy said quietly, but only if she wants it. Amara thought for a moment. If I talk, it won't be about scandal, she said. It'll be about what dignity sounds like when no one's listening. The interview happened 2 days later. The journalist came expecting spectacle. She found steadiness instead. Amara didn't speak in sound bites. She talked about the difference between being seen and being respected, about how apologies mean little if they don't change how you open a door. She spoke about names, about belonging, about how forgiveness is a practice, not a performance. The journalist scribbled furiously, eyes shining. When the article came out, it surprised everyone. The headline wasn't about theft or class, it was about humanity. The woman who taught a mansion how to listen. The photo showed Amara standing by the pool, sunlight turning her uniform into something noble. Behind her, blurred, the family smiled, not as employers, but as people who had finally learned to meet her gaze. Messages poured in from strangers. Women who had lost jobs unfairly, men who had misjudged others, daughters who had never apologized to their mothers. Each one wrote the same thing in a different way. Your story gave me courage to say my own name again. Amara didn't reply to them all. She didn't need to. Her work was never about collecting gratitude. It was about restoring balance. That Sunday, after the house quieted and the last dishes were washed, Jocelyn brought a small cardboard box into the kitchen. I made something, she said. Inside was a bracelet made of glass beads and wire, each bead a different color. None of them diamonds, all of them bright. In the center, one small charm with an engraved word, Amara. "It's not fancy," Jocelyn said shyly, "but it's real." Amara touched the charm. "That's what matters." "You'll wear it?" the girl asked. "I'll keep it close," Amara said, fastening it around her wrist. "So I never forget who helped me remember who I am." In the following months, the Bellamy family grew quieter in the right ways. Mrs. Bellamy joined a mentorship program for young women who'd been dismissed from domestic work unfairly. Mr. Bellamy began teaching financial literacy at a community center. Jocelyn volunteered at a shelter, teaching kids how to paint. None of it was for reputation. It was gratitude, doing its job. One evening, while cleaning the study, Amara found a framed copy of the article tucked behind the bookshelves. Not for guests to see, just for the family. She smiled and left it there. Some honors belong in private spaces. Summer returned. The first anniversary of the bracelet day, as Mrs. Hart called it, came with laughter and a table full of food that didn't require silver to taste good. The rule was simple: no speeches. But when dessert arrived, Mrs. Bellamy stood anyway. "I won't give a speech," she said, smiling at the irony. "I'll just say thank you. For saving my home. Not by cleaning it, but by teaching it decency. For making my daughter brave. For letting me earn your respect instead of assuming it." Amara shook her head. "Respect isn't a gift," she said. "It's a reflection. You gave it back." After dinner, while others cleared the plates, Amara slipped outside. The night smelled like magnolia and second chances. The pool reflected the house lights, calm, harmless. The same water that once mirrored accusation, now shimmered with peace. She walked to its edge, crouched down, and looked at her reflection. It wasn't defiant or wounded anymore. It was steady. Behind her, a soft voice said, "You're thinking again." It was Jocelyn. "I never stopped," Amara said. "Mom says we're leaving next month," Jocelyn said. "Dad got a new job in New York. We're selling the house." Amara nodded. "Houses are chapters. People are the story." "Will you come with us?" the girl asked. Amara smiled. "No, baby. My work here is done." Tears welled in Jocelyn's eyes. "But your family." "I'll always be," Amara said. "But you have to learn to keep the air clear yourselves now." The girl hugged her tightly, the kind of hug that rewrites distance. "I'm going to be like you one day," Jocelyn said. "Be like yourself," Amara whispered. "Just remember your name." When they left a few weeks later, Amara stood by the gate that had once sighed against her and watched their car roll away. For the first time, it didn't sound tired. It sounded like farewell said properly. She walked back to the porch and sat down. The house was empty, but it didn't feel hollow. It felt full of echoes, laughter, learning, forgiveness, like a bell that had found its tone. She stayed a while longer, caretaking for the property until it sold. On her last day, she locked the front door, placed her key on the marble table, and whispered, Thank you. The chandelier above her flickered once, as if answering. Outside, a car waited to take her to her next chapter. The driver asked, "Where to, ma'am?" Amara looked ahead, where the road curved into sunlight. Anywhere I can remind people who they are. As the car pulled away, the Bellamy house stood behind her, a monument not to wealth but to growth. In its windows for a brief moment, the light caught the outline of a woman's reflection, strong, graceful, unbowed. Then it faded into morning, and somewhere in that quiet city, someone else was already whispering her name. Not as gossip, not as pity, but as example. Amara Lewis, the maid who chose her name and made the world learn how to say it.